The Tigers drop a winnable game in the series finale against the Mariners. We'll talk about that and look ahead a little bit to the weekend. All today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Happy Thursday, everybody. The Tigers have an off day today, but we are going to talk about the series finale to the Seattle Mariners that was on Wednesday afternoon. The Tigers dropped that game 3-2. They do still take the series, which we love to see. And so this isn't, saw a lot of anger out there after this loss. It's okay. All right. It's all right. It's April 3rd. And the Tigers just won a series against a good baseball team on the road. Haven't even played a home game yet. They're on, their West Coast road trip. It's okay. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. I was very frustrated watching the end of this ball game, the last two innings. Specifically, there were some things that, we'll talk about the Colt Keith play, right? Like there was they were a few plays going in, a different direction away from sweeping the Mariners. And anytime you leave that on the table, or ultimately you can just flat out kind of say you lose when Scooble's on the mound, it's very frustrating. He wasn't at his best either. We'll talk about that a little later. So that kind of is my first thought. Was a lot of, I guess, what I just said. I guess that kind of was my my first thought. I guess I jumped the gun a little bit there, but I think my initial thought after this game was just frustration in some of those at bats and kind of the situational baseball there at the end of the game, and then just the fact that it's big picture, not the end of the world. This is ultimately, if you want a glass half full, it's another competitive close ball game, and there's going to be a lot of those. That's just how the team is made up. It's a team that is really good pitching and has some holes offensively. And especially when with the game on the line, you have 8-9-1 due up. Or I guess in that case, because Dingler got on base, it was just 9-1 due up. And one is Zach McKinstry. So here we are. It's okay. Let's talk about what went wrong in this one. Unfortunately, starting off with what went wrong, because it is ultimately a loss. I guess we can just kind of get the Colt Keith play out of the way early here and kind of start with that. That was probably the most talked about thing from this baseball game. I don't know what he was doing. I don't really have an answer for that. I'm sure the media will talk to him about that after the game, or AJ maybe will talk about it. I don't know, but I don't know whether that was a lapse of how many outs there were, or if he just thought that was his easiest play, and so he was initially going to go there, realized, let's just take the safe play at first, and then by the time he got the ball over there, JP Crawford moves down the line pretty quickly. So I don't have an answer for people scream at their TV. What is he doing? What is he thinking? I don't know. But it did result in 2 runs being scored. I also want to be fair. Tarek Skubal threw a brutal changeup. That ball was hit. That double that scored 2 of those runs after the Keith error. That was an awful pitch. So we gotta call it every way, right? It certainly was not that. And then you could even talk about Kreidler in center field. I think we have 2 center fielders that are currently on the injured list that probably both get to that baseball. I would bet my entire life earnings that Parker Meadows gets to that ball. Matt Vierling, I'm relatively confident. Maybe not as confident as I am in Parker, but I still am rather confident that if either of them are out there in center, they're probably coming down with that ball. But there's no denying that the Colt Keith play was the again, the inning's over if that happens, and none of the rest is even talked about. So then there was the play later in the game with the steal attempt, and Colt Keith, swipes and misses. It's a heck of a slide. Give credit where credit is due there, I guess. But another play that certainly would have helped, I guess I'll say, even though that one wasn't as costly as the previous one. So yeah, man. Like I understand people that look at one play and go, that single-handedly cost you the game. I'm not sure it's that black and white. You had multiple chances to win. As longtime listeners know, I don't really subscribe to the whole like one single moment, especially in baseball, like completely wins or loses you a game too terribly often. And I certainly don't in this case. The Tigers, again, a bad pitch was thrown after that. A playable ball in center field could have been made, and the Tigers had the bases loaded with one out in the ninth, and also at the heart of their order, 2 up in the eighth in a one-run game. They had opportunities and squandered them. And I think it's important to highlight that as well. But no denying that if Colt Keith just makes a routine play, a routine ground ball to second base, the Tigers might be walking out of Seattle with a sweep, certainly. Really impactful and unfortunate play there. I also think, while I mentioned a little bit there, the at-bats in the eighth inning. We'll talk about the ninth, and we'll talk about the offensive shortcomings in the ninth inning and why they weren't able to tie it or whatnot. But the eighth inning is going to be forgotten about, and those were egregious at-bats. Riley Greene goes up there, ground out to second base. Spencer Torkelson with probably his worst at-bat of the season so far, just 4 pitches, swings at all 4 of them, 2 of them out of the strike zone, 2, maybe even 3, at least 2 of them well out of the strike zone. And then Andy Ibanez pinch hits for Kerry Carpenter. That makes sense. This is one of the best lefty specialist relievers in baseball on the mound. So, like, if you want to say, like, oh, you got to let Carpenter get some at-bats against lefties, I get it. That's not the time or place. This is a one-run game in which a one-run game, and that pitcher is, I don't care if you're Juan Soto. I think they said on the broadcast he only gave up like 7 hits to lefties literally all year last year. That's an instance where you pinch hit 10 out of 10 times, and Andy Ibanez's at-bat wasn't much better. That sinker was just completely sawing them off and missing barrels and was keeping the ball on the ground. So that was the heart of your lineup in a one-run game, and you knew that Munoz was going to get the ninth. And so that was your opportunity. That was your golden opportunity. Greene, Torkelson, Ibanez against the lefty. And not against one of the best relief pitchers in baseball, and Andres Munoz. And that's no disrespect. For whatever it's worth. Again, as I highlighted, you're still getting a dog out of the pen. Seattle is like that. But that was your opportunity, and I thought those were putrid at-bats that will go completely unnoticed. So I want to, again, be fair to all angles here. That I thought was a great opportunity to get back into this ball game, and it's not just the fact that they didn't score, period. It's hard to score runs. They were completely uncompetitive. So that was more frustrating to me almost than the ninth inning. Keyword there, almost, because the ninth inning was absolutely pull your hair out frustrating, and that's where we head to next. We'll talk about the at-bats in the ninth inning, kind of the decisions for bunting and pinch hitting and all of that, and what led to a 3-2 final. Then we'll talk about the good in this game, because there was a handful of good as well. We'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered where the heck did all of my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money can come in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. So you can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. so you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. I nailed it today. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery and dining out, like I said. And now I have budgeted that to be much smarter and to save a lot more money. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check all of your finances, track all your spending, and even plan long-term goals. So it's like kind of like a one-stop hub for all of your financing needs. And obviously, something I talk about all the time in here, if you have a partner, it is so much easier uh, to manage, I guess still is the word, your spending with your partner, shared accounts, personal accounts, you name it. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of the first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off of your first year. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all so much for tuning in, as always, even after a 3-2 loss here. Appreciate everybody who makes us your first listen every single day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow, off day on Thursday as you listen to this. So we will take a little bit of time, preview the weekend, talk about the White Sox. They've gotten off to a not horrible start this year. The home opener obviously being this weekend. We'll kind of hype that up a little bit. And then the bulk of the show, though, is going to be talking about like overreactions 1 week into the season and whether I'm like buying into the overreactions or not. That's going to be tomorrow's show. Today, though, we talk about this 3-2 loss. So the ninth inning rolls around. You get two solid at-bats, and you get Colt Keith drawing a walk, then you get Justin Henry Malloy drawing a walk. Munoz, the only thing that he really struggled with in any capacity last season was walks. This is a guy that nobody got hits off of, nobody drove the ball off of, 99th, 100th percentile in pretty much everything, whip well under one. But if there is a weakness, it is that he can spray the ball sometimes, especially that slider, which we saw. And so I like that the Tigers, we're going to make him work for it. We're going to make him go and enter the strike zone in order to get himself out of that jam. Trey Sweeney comes up with two men on and no outs, I think, at that time. Yeah, no outs. Tries to bunt, doesn't pull the bat back for whatever reason, on a fastball that's way inside, strike one. Okay, well, that's brutal. Next pitch, strike two. Now it's 0-2, and it's a hitter in Sweeney that, although the home run, which we'll talk about, does have a lot of swing and miss and strikes out a ton. So that was just really never going to go super well after that missed bunt opportunity. And I think really this is something I've been saying on this show for about 3.5 years now. The organization will tell you how they feel about player or players if you just listen. And I feel like this was the perfect encapsulation of that point. When was the last time you saw AJ Hinch bunt? Or like, obviously not literally, he's a manager, but like, when was the last time you saw AJ Hinch give the bunt sign in a situation like that? I have been hosting this show. This June will be 4 years. Okay. I cannot tell you the amount of times I have read my comments in the morning on episodes and had just hundreds of, why did AJ not bunt there? He needs to bunt more. Why is he not bunting, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. He bunted in this situation. You want to know why? Because of who was up after Trey Sweeney. After Sweeney, that bottom of the lineup is shaky at best. The best thing you can call the Rogers, Kreidler, and then even if it wraps back around, Zach McKinstry trio that was due up after Sweeney is shaky. And I think more realistically, it's lesser than shaky offensively. Obviously, all of those guys really provide valuable defense. Rogers and McKinstry especially provide big-time plus defense. But so far this year, you're talking about a group of guys that have really done next to nothing at the plate. So he was going to bunt. And he was going to say, you know what? Give me man on third, two men in scoring position with one out. That way, as long as the next two hitters don't just strike out, we're probably tying this game at a minimum. So you have that. It doesn't go very well. Then you have Dillon Dingler come up. We'll talk about that in stuff. I think that that's a great sign for him, and it is telling at the same time. Then you have the Javi pinch hit decision. I have zero issue with this. It didn't go very well, right? He grounds out to third. They go home with it. Nothing happens, right? Frustrating, right? Javi, I just said right about 8 times. I apologize. Javi, not a good hitter, if in case you haven't noticed. Okay. That being said, I would rather have Javi in a high leverage situation than Ryan Kreidler. So I have no issue with that. Javi, the only time literally ever that Javi hit last season was with runners in scoring position. His stats with RISP last year were actually pretty darn solid. It's just that's literally the only time he hit the baseball. So I have no issue with that. I do not want Ryan Kreidler up in that situation. And then Zach McKinstry is Zach McKinstry. And that's what has plagued him for that at bat perfectly kind of highlights what has plagued him at the plate for years. It's like if you just throw low spin, he's going to swing and miss pretty much every time. I've been talking about that on this show for about over 2 seasons now. He looks at a fastball literally right down the middle and then goes chasing on a slider that bounces on home plate. Hitting is really hard. Hitting against Andres Munoz is really, really hard. That is, again, one of the better relievers in the sport. I do not blame, I guess is the word, them for not being able to convert in that situation. Munoz has done that a lot to much better hitters than the 3 that we were rolling up there in crunch time. So you let a winnable game slip, but it's April 3rd, and the Tigers have been in every game they've played. And I think that at a minimum, although the win is frustrating, and I'm not trying to hand out consolation prizes and all the caveats I have to put on this, I think that them playing competitive baseball and applying pressure throughout the game is still important. And I guess that'll transition into what went right. That's where I want to start, is the continued apply pressure throughout the game of this one specifically, but really every game they've played so far this season. No matter what, they are giving tough at-bats and applying pressure on the opposing team and the opposing pitcher. And this game was winnable, which is a good thing because it means that you were, again, playing in a close game. And it's a bad thing because that means you weren't able to get over the hump and take home the win. So both can be true. Both of those things, I think, can be true statements. And that's kind of where I find myself in this game. Riley Greene, yet again at the plate outside of that at-bat, as I said earlier, in the 8th inning, but was fantastic again. RBI in this one. And no strikeouts, which I know is big for a lot of people as well. Thought he looked pretty sharp out there. And honestly, I am just so excited to watch him take at-bats every game because I feel like he's only going to get better and better. And this was another great game, obviously. Colt Keith, for all the frustrations, did have 3 walks in this ball game. Look, man, like if you're not going to hit consistently, which he certainly has not so far in this young season, the least you can do is draw some walks. And he is drawing walks at one of the highest clips in all of baseball. He has one of the highest walk totals literally in Major League Baseball up to this point. Now, again, we're 6 games into the season, so there's plenty of time left. I doubt he'll finish that high up there, but we'll take it. It's at least something. It's at least something productive at the dish for a guy that has struggled out of the gates this season. The Trey Sweeney home run was obviously great as well. He's just an interesting piece to this puzzle because there is some legitimate, high-end hitting potential there. I should decently high-end hitting potential there But there's also just a low floor that comes with that because he has such a loopy swing that's going to get a lot of swing and miss, and he does whiff a lot and strike out a lot. So I think that he could play himself into more playing time pretty darn quickly because his counterpart is Javi Baez. I am. He's gotten off to a decent start. He's been pretty okay at the plate so far this year. Again, outside from that at bat in the ninth inning there. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on Sweeney and see what improvements he has to offer this team in 2024. And then lastly, for what went right, I do want to highlight Brennan Hanafy, who I thought looked absolutely disgusting. Just diabolical stuff, man. I am so excited for him. For real. I'm so excited for Hanafy. I'm so glad he made the team out of camp. I cannot wait to continue to watch him develop. And I genuinely think by the end of this year, we're going to be talking about him being one of the more valuable relievers on this team. That sinker slider combo is absolutely nasty. For years we had Jason Foley. We still do have Jason Foley. He'll be back. I'm almost positive of it. Probably relatively early on in the first couple of months of the season here. But for years it was okay. Well, Foley has this elite sinker, but he doesn't really have anything else. That slider that Foley has been throwing is just pretty much completely ineffective. Hanafy is what happens if you give a guy with an elite sinker also a solid slider. It's not the most disgusting thing in the world, but it's certainly better, a solid secondary pitch. So I am very excited to watch him continue to develop as well. Let's talk stuff. All right. We're going to talk Tarik Skubal. We'll talk about a few other news and notes from this game before we look ahead to the weekend. We'll do all of that right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Got to talk to y'all about our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, which gives you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, y'all know I love the no-shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, I'm on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they are always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, well, the in-shell options are a classic favorite as well. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, after this 3-2 loss to the Seattle Mariners, let's talk stuff. All right, so Tarik Skubal goes 5 2/3, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. This is in stuff intentionally, okay? This is obviously not the greatest start in the world. But he was an out away from still being viewed as a quality start in the eyes of baseball. This was not some catastrophic disaster. Oh my goodness, Tarik Skubal is cooked start that I was seeing from some people online, dude. This guy had 23 whiffs in this ballgame. That is really, really good. And if his second baseman and or center fielder make a play, and I'm talking about Ryan Kreidler like that was like an easy routine play. It was not, okay? He is not a center fielder, and that was a tough play. I'm just saying it wasn't impossible either, and we have center fielders in the organization that I can almost promise you would have made that play. The Colt Keith play is the one to focus on. That was brutal. If either of those two go in a different direction, then he gives up at least 2 fewer runs and has a lower pitch count and whatnot. But at the same time, his command was not good in this game. We can call it what it is, man. He was missing his spots all game long. Fastball command, but more importantly, the changeup command was just all over the place. was missing the zone completely, was missing up. That's where that double that was hit after Colt Keith made the error. That was a hanging changeup that could not have been thrown more down the middle. Some high leverage situations where he's missing fastball. I think it was, well, he's a left. Yeah, glove side. Just missing by a couple of inches, where like if it is a couple of inches more to the right, he's hitting that inside corner and getting strikeouts or working counts more. I just, his command was all over the place, and 3 walks is very uncharacteristic of him. On top of that, his stuff is still elite, as again 23 whiffs. That's one of the highest numbers in his entire career, and it came in a 5 2/3 3 earned runs outing. He's fine. He'll be fine. Everything's okay. He just was spraying the ball a little bit in the cold Seattle air on April 2nd. Okay, cool. John Brebbia finds himself in stuff as well. The only reason why is because technically it was a shutout inning. I guess it was a perfect inning, technically. All 3 of those at-bats could have legitimately been home runs. Those were hanging breaking balls. Go watch his outing again. I'm not kidding. Every single batter that he faced, he threw at least one absolute cookie that should have been hit 930 feet. So I'm glad that it was a shutout inning. We'll take it. But that's something that, you can't be throwing the sequence that he was throwing out there in May, June, July. That's going to be a much different result, I'm sure. The other thing I want to highlight is 2 more really key points. One is Justin Malloy is a tough at bat, man. Like that is, and I know that that's something that everybody is pretty well aware of at this point, but much more so than last year, you can already tell. Like he is hitting balls in the strike zone at a far higher clip than he was a year ago. And he just doesn't expand the zone for anything. It doesn't matter if it's high leverage, low leverage. He's got a swagger and confidence about him as well. When he took that pitch 4-4 in the 9th inning, I like that little, throw the bat a little bit, let him know. Like I took that. I'm confident that I took it. That is ball 4. I will go to first base. Thank you very much. I can like and appreciate that. So I just, how can you not love and root for that kid? I really hope that he is not the roster casualty when Gleyber Torres returns, because I think that this lineup is better with him in it. That's kind of the irony of this, is like, this was maybe my favorite lineup of the year in terms of just personnel. I think it's maybe the best on paper lineup they've rolled out there so far this year. And it was a quiet offensive game for most of it, until outside of obviously the 5th inning there. So, yeah. The only other thing I want to bring up is, I said 2 things and I only said one, is Dillon Dingler pinch hitting Jake Rogers. I said we'd come back to that. I think that's very intentional and something to keep an eye out for, man. Like if Jake Rogers is not going to be a producer offensively, and he's going to be more of like a defensive-minded catcher, Dillon Dingler is not a slouch behind the dish. He has looked really solid defensively, and if he hits well, he's going to play himself into being I don't even want to use the word primary catcher, because like no team, the days of an 140 game catcher are just over. Like that doesn't really exist anymore. You need 2 catchers. So maybe like the 1A, like he could play himself into that role. He is very solid defensively and has been swinging a really hot stick so far this season. So something to keep an eye out for sure. Look, man, like you're 2-4. You've been in every game you've played, which is a little bit of good, but also a little bit of bad, because that means you could have won pretty much every game you've played. But you've played 2 good teams, one of the best rosters we've literally ever seen, and another one that's certainly a playoff hopeful and is going to be a threat in the West there. And now you come home and play a team that's coming off of the worst season ever, and you play them at home. You are a better roster than the Chicago White Sox pretty comfortably, and you should beat them up and at least take a couple of wins from them this weekend. I'm not a person, all of you longtime listeners know this, I'm not a like you need to sweep or else kind of guy. Sweeping in baseball is very, very hard to do. I'll take series victories all season long. And especially in the first week and a half of the season, people are still getting up to speed and everything. We're all still getting acclimated. It's cold, et cetera, et cetera. Every other excuse you can think of that I'm going to name here. But joking aside, I'm not trying to make excuses. I'd say the same thing in August. Just win series, especially at home. This team was, the home record has been something that's been talked about a lot over the last couple of years with this team. And also their record in the first month and a half of the season. Last year was a lot better, but every year before that in the Hinch era was terrible. So take care of business against a worse team. Division games mean so much, especially because you play even less of them now. You have to take care of business this weekend. Don't let the pageantry and the excitement of opening day distract you from the fact that you got to take care of business and beat a much worse White Sox team. All right. And if you do that, then everything's fine. And everything's okay. And not sweeping Seattle on the road is not detrimental to the season. You took 2 of 3. You should have won this game. I firmly believe that. But bounce back, recover, go take care of business this weekend, and everybody will forget about it. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow talking about some, overreactions to the first week of the season and which ones I maybe am actually worried about or believe in, am confident about, or which ones I'm not really subscribing to. And then we'll preview the Chicago White Sox series. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch you all tomorrow, baby. Go Tigers.